Hello again, it's Miss Jones from Sew with Miss Jones. We are nearly done with this project. After having sewn up the edge of my mask where the hole was, my next thing that I want to do is to give this a good press before we do the last folding and stitching step. So I have my ironing surface out. Remember, don't do this on like a regular table. You got to be on an ironing board or something like I have. I have a little bit of steam and I'm pressing. I'm going up and down, up and down. And I want my temperature to be somewhere around the polyester-ish setting. Okay, I know this is not polyester, but that temperature will do this job. We don't need to have it higher than that. And I got those edges nice and crisp. It's a little hot. I'm going to let it rest for a minute before I start doing the next bit of folding. So while it cools down, I'm going to get my measuring tools that I need, and then we will do our last little bit of measuring, folding, pinning, and stitching. Let's take a look at our guide sheet to see what we need to do next. It says, making the casings for hand, machine, or serger sewing. Well, we're going to do hand sewing. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight that just to remind me where we are. The other thing about these guide sheets, there are these little boxes along here, and you can actually put a check mark in those as you finish off a step. So it says choose which side will be the right side. That's going to be the outside, and I decided I want my dots to be on the outside. And we're going to fold over the short side. So because it says I need the wrong side up, I'm going to flip mine over like this. Okay. And it says I'm going to fold in 1/2 of an inch. Remember that card we had before? And remember that the distance between the two lines was 1/4 of an inch? Well, 1/4 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch is 1/2 of an inch. So we're going to use this as our measuring tool. Or if you have a little ruler, you can do that too. So what I'm going to do is I am going to fold this up so that, if you notice, I slid it right in. I'm folding it up and I'm holding it down with my fingers. I have the edge of the mask even with that line, and then I'm going to pull that line, pull that paper out, holding it down with my hands. And then I'm going to put a couple of pins in here. If you have the shorter ones, you might need 3. I have the longer ones, so I can probably just use 2. Oh, and that's kind of funky, so I'm going to move it so it's... Okay, so it's really important that this piece right here is parallel. It needs to be 1/2 of an inch. If it's not 1/2 of an inch, then we might not be able to get that thread through. So I'm checking again, and it looks pretty darn close. All right, so I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to do the other side. Remember, these are both going to be folded towards the wrong side, or the inside of our mask. So lay that down near the edge, fold it up so it meets the line, and I'm kind of just pushing it down with my fingers. I'm kind of finger pressing and holding it in place, and I'm going to slide the card out, holding it in place, and I'm going to put a pin in, and I'm going to put a pin in. Now, if I were doing this at school, or if I were somebody that had a lot of sewing equipment at home, I actually could use a seam gauge. I would set it at the halfway mark, the 1/2 inch mark, and then I could just use that to measure to make sure it's all the way across. So one more time before I do any stitching, I am going to check to make sure that it's 1/2 of an inch all the way across. Okay, we have one more hand sewing step that we have to do, and then we will be ready to put our shoestrings in, and it'll be all ready for you to wear.